Welcome everyone to the BC Virtual Trade Mission. We're about to get underway, so I hope you have your seat belts on and you're ready to visit the province of beautiful British Columbia. Well, that was just a glimpse of Canada for all of you. Welcome to our road trip today. I hope everyone's doing well. It's the beginning moments as people are still entering our Zoom platform, but I welcome everybody. It's morning or afternoon, wherever you're logging in from. And thank you for joining us on our great Canadian road trip and the Virtual Canada Trade Mission with Orange County, I should say, Realtors. This event, we've been running road trips for since last year, and this event's a little bit special. We've got a couple of collaborators, so I'm super excited to have with us today Orange County of Realtors Global Business Alliance and the Asian Real Estate Association of America, the Vancouver chapter. So the three of us have been working over the last few months to pull this program together, and we hope you all have a great visit to the beautiful province of BC. I see some familiar names and participants who've been on our road trips before, so welcome back. And to those I haven't met, my name is Sharon von Schoenberg, and I'm Manager of Global Strategy and Relations for the Canadian Real Estate Association and oversee our Korea Global portfolio. So I'm super happy to be here. Today, we're on the road to discover the beautiful province of British Columbia. But before we start, I just have a couple of housekeeping items that'll help make our road trip a little more fun, and I won't have to pull out that dreaded wooden spoon. We're using the Zoom meetings platform, so everybody has audio and video capability, but we do ask all attendees to remain muted and camera off for our main presentation portion. We do hope to have some time left at the end for some virtual networking where you'll be able to turn your camera and your audio on. We invite you to use the chat functionality to introduce yourself, where you're from, and how you can connect. Also, if you have any questions as we go through the presentation, please use the chat. We will be monitoring that, and there will be a Q&A session after each presentation. So just hold on to those. And if we have to cut the Q&A off after each section, again, there'll be a little bit of time at the end for networking. If you stump us with a question, we'll take it back and we'll email you. This meeting is being recorded. I think you all had to agree to that as we started. We will not be recording the networking session, but do record so that we can share it out later for those who couldn't be on the road with us today. If we feel like the meeting's been compromised or hacked in any way, we'll just end the session. And again, we'll email with everyone accordingly. So I think that's enough housekeeping items. And it's time to hit the road. And I'm really excited to begin the trade mission by introducing our co-collaborators and their organizations. So I'm going to start with asking Joyce Endo, who is chair of Orange County Realtors Global Business Alliance, up to say a few words of introduction. Joyce?
Hello, everybody, and good morning from Southern California, Orange County area, and the Orange County Realtors Global Business Alliance Committee. This year, also, I'd like to give a great shout out to our CEO, Dave Stefanides, who is really a big supporter of our committee. I'd like to introduce you to our 2022 chair, Bob Hartman, and our vice chair this year, Lisa Yee.
Good morning. Welcome. This is our second annual Global Trade Week, and we wish everyone a great opportunity to learn more about Canada. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lisa E, and thank you all for being here today. And we're so excited to be able to partner with CREA and also with ARIA Vancouver. And I see many familiar faces as well. And I welcome you to discover the wonderful Canada. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks so much, Orange County, and we're happy to be here. Now I'm really excited to welcome Justin Lee, president of ARIA Vancouver chapter here today, who's going to say a few words of welcome from ARIA Vancouver. Justin, over to you.
Thank you, Sharon. Welcome everyone to our road trip today. We are so excited and honored to have your attendance. My name is Justin Lee of Century 21 In-Town Realty. I am a residential real estate advisor as well as a rental property manager. Also a Vancouver chapter's president. Nice to meet you and thank you for tuning in. Next slide, please. Just to give you a little background about ARIA. ARIA stands for the Asian Real Estate Association of America. It is a nonprofit organization first founded in 2003. Our goal is dedicated to promoting sustainable home ownership opportunities in the Pan-Asian, American, and Canadian communities by creating a powerful national voice for housing and real estate professionals that serve this dynamic market. Next slide, please. For almost 2 decades now, ARIA events have been known to provide excellent opportunities for networking with peers and practitioners, to exchange ideas and strategies, and to build partnerships and friendships that last a lifetime. It is also an opportunity to interact with experts on hand who can offer creative solutions to the challenges you face. Next slide, please. With over 17,000 members, over 43 chapters, Vancouver being one of the two Canadian chapters, the other is Toronto. We have a 10-year history as a chapter that was first founded in 2012 by Ms. Tina Mack, our founding and past president. To celebrate our 10th year anniversary, we are putting together a first ever public event later in the year, but I will discuss this in further details at the closing of today's program, so do stay tuned. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much, Justin, and welcome to all ARIA members, Vancouver, Toronto chapter, or the US where you're joining us from. So now it's time to hit that road. We're heading out to BC, as we said, British Columbia, beautiful West Coast. And we're going to start off our beautiful showcase of the province with the chief economist from BCREA. But before we call him up, I'll just mention a couple of stats around British Columbia. Well, it's Canada's most western province. It's defined by its Pacific coastline and its mountains, which I think you'll see a little bit of both of those areas today. It's home to more than 5 million Canadians, and there are over 25,000 amazing realtors working through 10 local boards and 1 provincial association, which is the British Columbia Real Estate Association. And today, as I alluded to, we're beginning our road trip with a look at how the BC real estate market's doing. And I'm super excited to welcome Brendan Ogmundson, Chief Economist with the British Columbia Real Estate Association. Brendan, thank you so much for joining us, and tell us what's happening in BC.
Great, happy to. Let me quickly share my screen. Cool, everyone can see, I assume. So I'm going to be providing an overview of what's been going on in the BC housing market, what we kind of expect over the next couple of years, some of the factors that are really influencing the BC housing market right now. First, a quick kind of comparison of British Columbia, California, population just over 5 million, compared to about 40 million for California. The GDP of BC economy is about $216 billion versus 3.4 trillion with a T, and those are in US dollars for California. Median family income's pretty similar between California and BC, $70,000 versus $78,000. Average home prices also very similar, again in US dollars, 730 grand versus about $800,000 in California. All right, quick primer on the Canadian mortgage market, because it's a little different than how things work in the United States. In Canada, about 25% of the 35% of homeowners with a mortgage, so about 2/3, have a 5-year fixed rate. So 5-year bond yields are really important in Canada, kind of like the 30-year is really important in the United States, because most people get a 30-year mortgage and then refinance when rates change. In Canada, refinancing is really, really expensive because of penalties for breaking your mortgage. So most will opt for a 5-year fixed rate. About a third get a variable rate with a fixed payment. It's really, really rare in Canada for home buyers to opt for a true like adjustable payment type mortgage. So the most important thing in the Canadian mortgage market is really that 5-year bond yield that drives 5-year fixed rates. And that's kind of, that's what we tend to focus on when we talk about mortgage rates in Canada. So you might be used to a 30-year. We'll always talk about 5 years here. Quick, brief intro to BC, how the BC economy has been growing. So we have our own tracking estimate in BC. We only get GDP growth numbers once a year. So we've put together our own tracking estimate for monthly economic growth. You can see the damage that was done by COVID. The BC economy was contracting at about a 10% rate in the worst parts of COVID, about twice as bad as during the financial crisis in 2008, 2009. But thankfully, the recovery was very strong. Last year, economic growth in the province was over 6%, and we're tracking at around 5% early on. So we're still seeing really, really strong growth in the BC economy. If we look at the labor market and look at the COVID recession and recovery compared to past recessions in Canada, and our recessions tend to line up really well with the United States, no surprise. You see that we lost about 400,000 jobs in the first couple of months of COVID, down about 15%, very similar to what happened in California, almost identical in the speed and magnitude of job losses. But BC's had a much stronger recovery from COVID than has been experienced in California. So we regained our pre-COVID kind of recession peak employment after about a year. And we've had a pretty strong employment growth ever since. How about the housing market? So 2021, we absolutely smashed all previous records in terms of home sales and prices, beating previous records by a pretty considerable margin. 2022, not so much. So we had a pretty strong start. And in the recent months, markets have really started to fade. No surprise when you have interest rates as high as we have now, which we'll get to. We just haven't been able to hit the same gear we did last year. So we can see home sales last year, about 125,000 sales. That beat the previous record by about 12,000 sales. Really, really strong. So far through this year, we're a little below average, and that change happened really quick. We had a pretty strong first quarter, but really since May, June, July, we've seen home sales fall to below average levels. On the supply side, because sales are weakening, we're starting to see inventories of listings really build, but we're really, really far away from what we would consider in the province to be a balanced market. So we need about 40,000 listings in BC to be kind of healthy, balanced market, assuming that sales are also normal. We started this year with 15,000 listings. So California's got a big supply problem. So does BC, and really so does every market you talk about across North America. In terms of month of inventory, we need to get back to around 5 months of inventory for balance. We're at about 4 months right now. Things are adjusting really quickly because sales are falling pretty fast. But it's still going to take a while for the whole market to get to balance. Some markets in Greater Vancouver are probably already there. The single detached market is pretty weak right now, but other markets across the province, the north, parts of the interior like Kamloops, Kootenay, are actually still have seen pretty tight market conditions and haven't seen much of a drop off in sales. So very different dynamics depending on which part of the province we're looking at. On the new supply side, I'm sure you have this same problem where we have a lot of units under construction right now. We just can't complete them in a timely fashion. So in BC, we have a real problem getting new supply to market quickly. We're okay at starting projects, but we take a very, very long time to finish them. We have really long permit times. We have scarce kind of labor and materials resources. And we have a lot of other kind of red tape from municipalities that make it difficult to get supply to market quickly. That tends to exacerbate our overall supply problem. All right, so when we look at what's going to happen with home prices in BC, and home prices ran up about 40%, which we'll get to during the pandemic. What really drives home prices, home price growth is months of inventory. We started the year way out at the left hand of this curve at about less than 2 months of inventory. So we were seeing prices rise at a 20%, 30, 40% annual rate in some markets. We're kind of coming down this inventory curve now. Well, we'll probably get to a point where we maybe have a little bit of excess inventory by this time next year. And therefore we expect prices are going to soften a little bit. On the price side, you can see what's been happening. Threw in Los Angeles, San Diego, Case-Shiller, just for comparison. You can see very, very similar trends for all of these major cities in regions across BC compared to what's been going on in California and the broader country. Very, very similar, I think, dynamics because of the pandemic. We saw prices outside of our largest metro area, Vancouver, grow faster than in Vancouver. We had a lot of kind of exodus or relocation demand out of the big cities into the suburbs where people were looking for more affordable space. So prices in places like the interior and the island were going up a lot faster than in the kind of core of Vancouver. All right, but things have changed very quickly because interest rates have changed really, really fast. So we started this year at a 5-year fixed rate, and the benchmark rate for Canada at around 2.25%. And by June, we hit over 5%. And in Canada, you need to qualify for a mortgage at the higher of 5.25%. or your contract rate plus 200 basis points. So even if you're getting a rate from your bank at, say, the current 5.09%, you need to qualify at over 7. So that's had a real big impact on markets, and it happens really fast when rates go up this quickly. We have seen some retracing of bond yields in recent weeks. So they seem like maybe 5-year rates have peaked. We saw the 5-year fixed rate come down a whole 5 basis points in the last couple of weeks. But we're at a level of interest rates we really haven't seen in over a decade. And with that qualifying rate, it means you're qualifying at a rate that really hasn't been relevant in the market for about 20 years. So that's having a really, really big impact on the market. And why are rates going up so fast? Same reason in Canada as the United States. It's all about inflation. Just like the Fed, it seemed like the Bank of Canada had killed inflation way back in the 90s in Canada with the advent of inflation targeting, which kept inflation at its 2% target for multiple decades until the pandemic really broke a lot of parts of the economy. And now we've got inflation running at close to 8%. So a little below the 9% that we saw in the US for the most recent month, but inflation's really high and rising. What's driving that inflation? Same thing as in the United States, is all about gas prices and grocery prices. That's everywhere you look, that's what's happening. We have seen gas prices start to come down recently. Oil prices are falling. That's going to be good news, but it's going to take a while to actually be reflected in CPI inflation. And more importantly, expectations are running a little out of control. So the Bank of Canada and even the Fed, as powerful as it is, can't do a lot to fix inflation coming from global oil prices, coming from broken supply chains. One thing they can really try and get ahead of are inflation expectations. What we really want to avoid is a spiral from wage demands into prices into current CPI. So if you have employees that are expecting 10% inflation next year, they're going to go to their boss, ask for a 10% raise. Their boss is going to think, if I have to give everyone on staff a 10% raise, I need to increase prices by 10% now. And you get this really destructive feedback loop from expectations back to prices. The central banks, this makes them extremely, extremely nervous. And that is why they're being so aggressive, because they really want to break that spiral by raising rates really quickly, talking down expectations as much as possible, really signaling to markets, signaling to households they're going to be aggressive and single-minded in their pursuit of crushing inflation. We'll see if it works. What does that mean for interest rates in Canada and the Bank of Canada? So the Bank of Canada has this idea of a neutral rate, about 2.5%. I think the estimate is between 2 and 3%. The Fed target has a neutral rate that's probably around 3%. So very, very similar. We're at the midpoint of that neutral rate range now. So from here, it's really about how hard is the Bank of Canada going to be slamming on the brakes? Are we going to get another 75 basis point increase? They did 1% at their last meeting. So I know the talk is the Fed, their next meeting is a supersized 75 basis point increase. We had a 1% increase at our most Bank of Canada's most recent interest rate decision. They're probably going to do that, or the idea is they're going to bring rates to probably about 3% by the end of this year, maybe a bit higher, depending on what's happening with inflation. Interestingly, if you look at the 2-year bond yield, and this is true in the United States as well, it's a really good idea of what markets are thinking the central bank is going to do. It basically only has expectations priced into it, and there's no term premium really. And we've started to see that 2-year bond yield retrace a little bit. So at one point, 2-year bond yields were like 3.5%. They've come down to like 3.25. Pretty good indication that the Bank of Canada is going to above 3% in pretty short order. And that means rates are probably going higher. We're going to have mortgage rate. Although all of this is kind of priced in. So I shouldn't say that mortgage rates are probably going higher. They're going to stay high around 5% because that 5% already has about a 3 to 3.5% overnight rate priced in. All right, what is the impact of these rate increases on the housing market? So when the Bank of Canada has raised rates in the past, this is 40 years of Bank of Canada tightening. We trace what has happened in the 2 years after the Bank of Canada starts tightening. You can see a pretty wide range. Every one of these lines represents 2 years after the Bank of Canada starts raising in a tightening cycle and the impact on sales. So we've seen a pretty wide range of impacts all the way from after 12 months, sales being up 17% to them being down 5% to being down 23%. On average, they're down by 5%. We're seeing a much bigger impact than that right now. You can see the historical range. All those squiggly lines are in the shaded area here. We've thrown in the last time the Bank of Canada was tightening rates, and we introduced that stress test I was talking about, where you have to qualify at 200 basis points over your contract rate. That's that light blue line. And then the actual, so the red line is what's actually happened to sales in BC since the start of Bank of Canada tightening. We're down about 35–40% from peak. The peak was pretty high in terms of sales. So again, we were at a record pace even through the first quarter of this year. So we're coming down off a very high level of sales, but it's coming down pretty fast. If we put in our model, the current rate path that is expected for the Bank of Canada, you can see where we end up at about 60% below our peak level of sales. So sales are getting weak. We expect them to get a little weaker over the next year, all because of that impact of Bank of Canada tightening. What about prices? Same exercise. We traced out the impact on prices 2 years after the Bank of Canada starts tightening. And again, very wide range of impacts, all the way from, after 24 months being down 20% to being up 41%. So on average, what we've seen is prices really flatten out after a year. Flat after going up 30% is a pretty big adjustment. And when we look at, again, our model versus the historical range of what's happened versus that B20 stress test year, we're seeing prices come down from their peak a little faster than what we've seen in history and what we would expect when we model these things. Things are just moving really, really fast. It's really hard to capture in an econometric model the speed of rates going up and how that impacts expectations. All right, if we look kind of by region, which regions have been hit the hardest by those rate increases since Bank of Canada started tightening? That vertical line should be over at the 0. Apologize. No surprise, the most expensive markets, the Lower Mainland, which includes Metro Vancouver, the most expensive market in Canada, the island and the Okanagan, so that includes Kelowna, and the island includes Victoria, are all down considerably. Markets in the north and the Kootenay, which is kind of in the far east, southeast corner of BC, haven't really seen much of an impact. Sales are down, but they're down from record high levels. But we haven't seen nearly the severity of impact that we've seen in more expensive markets around major cities. All right, what does it all mean for our forecast going forward for the next 2 years? We're expecting sales to be down about 30% this year from a record high, down a further probably 18 to 20%. We're still working out the forecast in 2023. So I think we're gonna have a pretty weak 2023. And then on the pricing side, prices are coming down, but they're coming down from a really high level, which means for the whole year, they're probably gonna be up. If we did a December over December, prices are probably down about 2 or 3%. And then we expect prices to be down about 5% on average next year for the whole province. All right, so never like to end on anything negative like prices and sales being down. There's a lot of reasons to be optimistic about the next couple of years in BC. One is, as fast as rates went up, there's a really good chance they're going to be coming back down in 2023. So when we model this stuff out, because of the lagged impact of rate hikes on the economy, this means that growth is probably going to be pretty weak heading into the second half of next year, with a chance that those rate hikes tip into a recession. Exact same stories playing out in the United States. All we hear about is fears of recession. A recession means rates are coming down. So there's a real good chance we're going to see those rate hikes reversed next year. That's good for the housing market, not as good for the economy if we're in a recession. But recessions are temporary, they end. Interestingly, if we look in the United States, we kind of just look at what markets are expecting the Fed to do. Expectations of how high the Fed is going to have to raise rates and when they might start cutting rates have really changed since the last meeting, with expectations of where the Fed is headed falling about 100 basis points. So sentiment in bond markets is really starting to change in terms of monetary policy, and that could mean long-term rates coming down, mortgage rates coming down. Most importantly, in BC, we have extremely favorable demographics. So if we look at the different age cohorts, different generations, the millennial generation in BC is absolutely enormous. It's the largest cohort of any other generation in BC. And we're going to have, over the next 10 years, more people aged 30 to 39 than we ever have in the past 50 years. What's special about people in their 30s? They tend to buy houses. So we're going to have a lot of housing demand in this province over the next 10 years. And BC is the fastest growing province in all of BC, in all of Canada. And it has 4 of the 5 fastest growing cities in Canada. So BC is in really, really good shape. We're going to get through a really rough 2023. But after that, we have so much demand in this province that housing is going to be, I think it's going to enjoy a very, very strong recovery. All right. Hopefully I didn't take up too much time. Whenever you invite an economist to talk, it usually goes long. Hopefully I did all right on the timing. Happy to answer any questions if we have some.
That was great. Thank you so much, Brendan. And I have to say, I not only enjoyed your update, but I also loved all the references to Will Ferrell. So I'm not sure if we're just 2 fans of Will Ferrell, or he always seems to work his way into something. There were a couple of questions in the chat that one was answered, but I'll just pose it to you anyways, in case you have a different viewpoint. It was around development times. So what is the build out time for new construction?
Yeah.
Tina Mack stepped up and read from the developer acquiring land to the time end user moves in could be as long as 7 to 8 years. Didn't know if you had any other further comments on that.
Yeah, thank you, Tina. Tina, you're the best. Thank you for answering the question. So I know for Benchmark, we did this some research on this recently. In the Western United States, from the time you get a building permit to completion, I think is like 16 months. In BC and in Vancouver, it depends on municipalities. That process, just from permit, where time to build is about 2 years, and you're adding another couple of years for permit time, and even before that, any kind of pre-development time. Yeah, you could be talking for a large project like 5 to 8 years. So that's too long. We did some work. I didn't reference it in my slides. We did some work on if we could just reduce the sort of like permit to completion down to 24 months, would make a huge impact on affordability. Just getting supply to market faster, matching supply and demand faster, but it's a major problem in BC for sure.
Perfect.
But,
thank you.
To be a bit positive, there is some real progress. I think the government here is starting to realize, I think, that supply is a really important part of the problem, and they're at least talking about trying to fix it.
Yeah, very good. And I think here in Ottawa, it's very similar timelines. I've heard similar complaints. Another question that was in the chat from Lee out in Florida was, what effect has the changes in China's banking policies towards individual depositors had for Chinese buyers in BC?
I don't know if I can answer that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I know, because I'm not sure what policy we're talking about. I know in 2017, when there was enhanced capital controls, but money coming out of the country, we did see an impact. It was on top of the foreign buyers tax here, and foreign investment in BC overall is about 3% of sales in 2017. Because of the pandemic and because of those capital controls, it's close to 0.5% now. Yeah, but not my area of expertise. So.
Perfect. And it may come up later. I just thought I
Sure.
would put it in there as it was there. If anyone else has any questions, you can feel free if you want to unmute and quickly call out your question. Otherwise, we do have quite a bit more to share on the province, and Brendan will stay with us, I believe. Brendan,
Yep.
till perfect.
Yep, you bet.
All right. I can't see anyone and I don't hear anyone. So I think we're good to go. I think you're off the hook for the next little bit. So thank you again, Brendan, for joining us and for that great update. Now that we've learned a little bit about the province as a whole, we're going to work with some local realtors and learn about areas to watch. We're going to look at Vancouver, Whistler, Victoria, and the interior. And it's my pleasure to welcome Daniel John, Chair of the Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver, to take us on this part of the journey. And he's going to introduce our wonderful panel of realtors. So Daniel, I'll turn things over to you. Welcome.
All right. Thank you, Sharon. Hopefully everyone can hear me all right.
Yeah,
hi, everyone.
good.
Excited to be here. And it's my pleasure to be able to introduce our panel for this part of the program today. So today we have Justin Lee, Area Vancouver President and Realtor with Century 21 Town Realty in Vancouver. We have Kathy White, Realtor with Engel and Volkers in Whistler. Lindy Cruikshank, President of the Interiors Association of Realtors and broker with Engel and Volkers, South Okanagan. And Colleen Ferguson, Realtor with Victoria with the Victoria New Homes Group with EXP Realty. And we all have them here individually to present to their areas. So just a note, we'll hold all the questions until after all our speakers have presented in their areas, and we'll run a Q&A session at the end. So hopefully we can get to everyone's questions. So to start out our areas, we'll start with an overview of Vancouver, and I'll turn things over to Justin Lee. Justin, all yours.
Thank you very much, Daniel. And welcome to the road trip. Let's get this started in Vancouver. Next slide, please. Okay. Now, what you see before you is a fairly new, it's meticulously kept, a West Coast contemporary condominium that features 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. And not only does this condo have the floor-to-ceiling windows, it's also completely open concept with 1,021 square feet of living space, with granite countertops, engineered hardwood and marble flooring with the Bosch appliances as well. This unit also features stunning views of the Georgia Strait with 2 spacious parking stalls. This is perfect for the first-time home buyer or just students just going to school in the area, namely University Hill Secondary and UBC. Now, for investors, this could rent for up to around $3,000 per month, be non-furnished, and no utilities included. The only rental stipulation here is that all rentals must be a minimum of 30 consecutive days. Next slide, please. This condominium project, namely the Laureates, was developed by the well-known Polygon, as I'm sure you've probably heard of them. What makes this community so attractive is that you'll be in proximity to the University Golf Club, Oasis Beach, everyday conveniences, and some of the best schools in BC. It is also potentially the future home of the UBC SkyTrain project, as Vancouver City Council has already confirmed their support of this project. While the line currently extends from Vancouver Community College to Arbutus Station only, which is still about 7 kilometers from UBC. It's definitely an exciting time for those who've already secured homes in the area. Now, it's really just a matter of waiting until the entire project is completed, because property values are expected to increase by another potentially up to 20% upon SkyTrain completion, as we've seen with other historical examples from the Metro Vancouver region. Next slide, please. Okay. Now, homes in the lower to mid $1 million ranges are far and few in Vancouver proper. So, so we're going to veer off into Coquitlam, which is a little city in the suburban regions of Metro Vancouver. Now, what you see before you is a fully renovated 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom home. This itself is a true representation of a mid-range home under the $2 million threshold that is in move-in ready condition, equipped with air conditioning, a fenced wall, fenced and well-manicured backyard, private patio, 2 fireplaces, and reasonably high-end appliances, quartz countertops, new blinds, engineered hardwood flooring, and double car garage, all on a 6,100 square foot corner lots. There is a self-contained 2-bedroom suite downstairs with its own facility laundries, and something like this would rent just the bottom floor. Something like this would rent for around $2,000 per month unfurnished, but it does include utilities. Next slide, please. Now, Coquitlam is home to approximately 139,000 diverse residents, and it's situated approximately 30 kilometers from downtown in the northeast corner of Metro Vancouver. And while it is a family-oriented municipality with many public parks and green spaces, it has many recreation centers and shopping centers and schools. The Evergreen SkyTrain line, which is an 11-kilometer extension from the Millennium Line, opened in 2016 to about 39,000 daily riderships currently, so making Coquitlam a highly integrated community and an investment hotspot for locals and those abroad. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay. Okay, let's bring it back to Vancouver now. What you see before you is what I think is a true representation of luxury. This contemporary villa style and concrete modern built by G. Wilson Architects showcases 3 beds, 4 baths over 3 levels, with a 12-foot ceilings, marble flooring throughout, custom millwork, a chef kitchen with Gaggenau appliances, and floor to ceiling doors and windows. Now, the master bedroom even has a lounge area, so you can, get to your drink faster, and an onyx fireplace. And you can see from the picture in the bottom left-hand corner, this is an onyx fireplace. It has a light that lights up from within, so it kind of illuminates the whole room with some diffused lighting. The basement also features a full recreation room with another kitchen, additional 2 bedrooms, and an office space. Paul Sanga, who is a renowned landscape artist, designed and landscaped the entire 6,700 square feet corner lot to include day beds, barbecues, fire pits, hot tub, water features, and even a waterfall. The home is also equipped with a smart home system that controls the HVAC, audiovisual equipment, motorized blinds and curtains as such for the luxury touches here. So next slide, please. Tucked in the quiet southwest corner of Vancouver West, not only is the Dunbar neighborhood quite coveted with many upscale homes, it is also the home to many top schools such as Crofton House and the UBC. It is also in proximity to the fine Kerrisdale shopping district, golf ranges, and public parks. And a property of this caliber rents typically for around $13,500 per month. It would be furnished, but utilities are not included in that case. Now, being in a quiet and coveted area doesn't mean that you have to be far from major centers, as your drive to YVR is only 11 minutes and 16 minutes to downtown Vancouver. And that hopefully that gives you an idea what Metro Vancouver has to offer. That is it for my leg of the road trip. I'm going to pass the steering wheel back right back at you there, Daniel.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks for giving us that overview. Next we have, I'd like to now invite Kathy White to share insights on Whistler. Kathy, go ahead, all yours.
Thank you so much, and thank you to all the organizers and participants today for joining me for an overview of the Whistler area just north of Vancouver. And on the next feature slide, I'll introduce myself through my career experience. I've been a realtor in British Columbia for over 25 years. I spent 10 years teaching on behalf of the BC Real Estate Association. And yes, I'm an avid skier and mountain biker. I imagine some of you have visited Whistler. It is now a full year time resort, and certainly was the Olympic host village in 2010 for the Winter Olympics. I'm also the chair of the 55 plus group here in Whistler. Many of our skiers are skiing well into their 90s. It's amazing up here. So if you're over 55, it's a great place to live and retire. On the next slide, you'll see where we're located. We're so close to the Seattle border for people driving up. That is one of our large markets of purchasers coming out of the United States. We also have direct flights, of course, from San Francisco, Los Angeles, and New York, now through JetBlue, which just started on June the 9th. Many of our residents, we have about 14,000 people living full-time in Whistler year-round, are augmented on a daily basis by 30, 50 to 100,000 visitors for all our special events. It's a very busy resort town. And certainly you can see drivebc.ca is one of the best websites to use when you're coming up to Whistler for year-round driving conditions. And we're very close, just an hour and a half, 2 hours north of Vancouver. And then on the next slide, you'll indicate some of the information about our resort that I wanted to share. We are on the traditional territories of the Squamish Lillooet peoples. The Indigenous territory here is under the Coast Salish moniker, but we honor and respect their heritage, and you can see their museum and their living, that facility there highlighted in the photo is their beautiful information center when you're up here in Whistler. We also have a traditional museum here that highlights how our resort started around the 1900s. People used to hike up the mountains and ski down. We now have the luxury of wonderful ski lifts to take us up and down the slopes, both in summer and winter. As you may know, Vail Resorts purchased Whistler Blackcomb in 2016, so we have benefited from their marketing expertise around the world. Many people ski through the Epic Pass here. We are a resort municipality just north of Vancouver, so our status as a resort municipality does give us some benefits in zoning to permit people to live in their homes full time. We have some zoning that permits nightly rentals and of course, long-term rentals as well. Our marketing agency, Tourism Whistler, the Chamber of Commerce is excellent to connect with when you're looking at business connections with Whistler. And of course, we encourage your clients and yourselves, if you're looking at investing in British Columbia, there's a website there for you to connect with. And we have immigration companies as well to help that process of people moving to Canada to whether to invest in a business, a home, or for a future residency. On the next slide, I thought it would feature some of the information regarding our recent statistics. Whistler is a very unique resort community. Our benchmark house price in June was just over 2.8 million Canadian. A regular townhouse, there's such a variety of townhouses here, is around 1.5 million. And then a condominium or apartment style residence would be around 780,000. Whistler also has what's called the Whistler Housing Authority, which helps local employees. They're trying to house 75% of our workforce right here in Whistler. And certainly I keep in touch with the Whistler Housing Authority as well. They're a great organization. And that really brings about the flavor of our resort, connecting the local community with the tourism visitors. You know, certainly we have federal and provincial government regulations which affect real estate, which we are monitoring into the new year. Certainly Whistler is excluded from the vacant home tax, a speculation tax, and currently we don't have a foreign buyer tax. So we will be monitoring that, of course, with our local governments and across Canada. Next slide. I thought in the next slide I would feature our most expensive home to date in Whistler is 39 million Canadian. It's a luxury estate listing up in an area of town called Stonebridge, overlooking Alta Lake towards the Whistler Village. Yes, that is about an 84-foot infinity pool. It's an amazing site. And certainly this style of property would have been probably 2 to 3 years in the construction phase, and it is a piece of art as well as a wonderful home to live in. As you can see, it has 6 bedrooms and 9.5 bathrooms and just about 8,700 square feet. Certainly with the exchange rate right now in Canadian dollars, on average between 20 to 25%, there is some savings there when you're purchasing in US currency. On the next slide, you'll see my listing. It's a home that's, you know, we have these residential areas of Whistler that are so comfortable, and often these chalet style homes have suites as a mortgage helper. This home in particular is in Alta Vista, a residential community next to Alta Lake. As you can see, it has 6 bedrooms, 5.5 bathrooms, just under 4,000 square feet, and just under 5 million Canadian. And certainly the next slide will indicate a townhouse opportunity. Certainly in our areas around town, many of our investors from around the world like to invest in townhouses. This is an area called the Bluffs, right at the base of Whistler Mountain. It's so beautiful. And I'll certainly get into, for example, this area does permit short-term rentals, monthly rentals, and the owner can live there full time. It's just under 2.7 million. Because it has been used as an investment property, there is GST, currently 5% on top of the purchase price. We have many excellent accountants and lawyers and other consultants here in Whistler that can help you with your tax accounting and also setting up your investment in Whistler. And this home is just under 1,300 square feet, a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom townhouse. It's a beautiful complex. On the next slide, you'll see that this is right at the base of Blackcomb. You can see from the photography there, that's a spring photo and a winter photo. Certainly, we really enjoy having all visitors from around the world come here to Whistler. And this building is called Le Chamois. It's within, I don't know, 5 minutes to the lifts. And you can watch the skiers and enjoy the restaurant down in front called Milestones. This is on what's called the Benchlands area of Whistler. So again, this building zoning permits nightly rentals, and that you can live there full time, or you can actually have a lease tenant month to month or longer. Just over $1 million Canadian plus GST because it's been used as a rental investment. And certainly a very comfortable access to Whistler from Vancouver Airport. You can get dropped right off to this building and get skiing in the afternoon. So for the next slide, I just wanted to alert you that I'm here to help you. If you're looking at coming to Whistler, whether it's for a visit or whether to send your clients up to Whistler, or if you have any other questions about real estate up here, I'm happy to refer to those questions during the Q&A session. And certainly just to quickly go over what an average rent would be in Whistler, because I know some people may be interested in that. Local employees would pay about $2,500 a month for a condominium to rent. A townhouse rental could be anywhere between $4,000 to $6,000 a month. And a luxury house could be anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 a month. And usually they would come furnished and ready to go for the renter. We have a very good Residential Tenancy Act here in British Columbia that protects not only the renter, but also the landlord. I encourage you to look at that legislation. Thank you for your time today. On behalf of all of us in Whistler, we hope to see you soon.
Thanks, Kathy. We had a comment in the chat there that from Cynthia that Whistler is heaven on earth, and I think you would agree, perhaps. Yeah, okay. Perfect. So thanks for the presentation. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Lindy Cruikshank to showcase BC's interior. Lindy, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Daniel. Hello, everyone. I am here to talk to you today on behalf of the Association of Interior Realtors. And we're a bit of a unique association within the province of BC and actually within Canada. We have 2,500 members within our association, and we cover a very broad area within our region, very diverse area. So we go from right down to the border, the US-Canada border, being a Soyuz, right up into the northern Peace River area, out to the Kamloops region, and out across the west to the Kootenays. And because of the wide area that we cover, we do find that our prices are quite diverse because we have some larger markets and some smaller markets. If I could get someone to move us forward to slide 3, please. I probably should have tossed that one out a little sooner. So within our area, we've seen a real diversity of pricing. And with the change in our market demand over the last couple of months, we are starting to see our sales settling out. As Brendan had mentioned when he was talking about the province, in particular, the Okanagan area saw incredible growth over the last couple of years. Our demands had increased significantly, and they've started to settle down a little bit more. So, when we look at our central Okanagan area, and as we move through some of these other slides, we'll be able to have a look at a little bit more of the pricing. If I could get you to move to the next slide, please. There we go. So you can see that our sales really did increase significantly through 2021, and we've started to see a settling out of that by approximately 25%. And if I can get you to move to the next slide, please. So what we're looking at here is we're showing that we're starting to see our recovery really across the greater area to settle out back to where we saw our pricing back in 2016, which was in fact a really balanced market for us. So with the demand starting to settle out, and Brendan had covered quite a bit of this, we saw with the interest rates starting to go up, that has certainly started to settle out and really have people pulling back a little bit to our area. I wanted to share with you, sorry, I'm having a little trouble with my computer here. I wanted to share with you a little bit about some of our areas, and I missed that part. So I'm going to ask you if you could go back. Actually, we'll just move forward to our slide 6, and I can chat about some of our areas in particular, if you don't mind. Okay, so when we talk about, there, that works too. When we talk about where we sit price-wise within our province, you can see some of our areas, such as the central Okanagan, We sit at about $1 million, $1,112,000 is an actual single family price. When we move to our northern Okanagan area, we're just under 800,000 for a single family home. And then within our Shuswap area, we are 757,000. So you can see we have a real diversity of prices within our area. And within our South Okanagan area, we're at about 816,000. And if I talk a little bit about some of the unique aspects of our broad region that we have within the central, within our association, when we talk about our Peace River area, that's certainly our northernmost area. And within that area, you'll see a lot of hiking, a lot of farming. Our Kamloops and our Kootenays, which are on either side of our region. The Kamloops area, it's about 4 hours out of Vancouver. And it's an area that has really drawn a lot of people looking to move from the major markets, but still be close enough to be able to commute back and forth. And the Kootenays area, that's an area that is definitely really known for its hiking and its biking and its lakes, and certainly its skiing. And then our Okanagan, which is a very broad area, that area is certainly known for its wineries, its lakes, its mountains, our skiing. We have, I think it's around 230 wineries that we have in the Okanagan right now. So certainly known for our agriculture, approximately 2,000 orchards that we have there as well. And what we've really noticed over the last couple of years is that draw out from the major markets, not just within BC, but also across Canada and the US, coming up into that central area of BC, which of course has driven up some of our pricing. If I could get you to move to the next slide, please. And so as I was mentioning, our household growth has really grown, in particular through that Thompson and Okanagan area. With the lifestyle switch that we had been experiencing within the greater BC area, and I would say really across Canada and much of the US, it's that remote desire to work, which has increased significantly our demands and people wanting to live outside of the major markets. And so when you look at a city like Kelowna, for example, it's seen significant growth and demand in housing, with people looking at making those moves outside of our major markets. And our next slide, please. So again, talking about our job growth, we have extremely low rates for unemployment, not just within, and really I would say across all sectors. We've seen a real demand increase within our tourism and our hospitality, but also because of people's abilities to work remotely. We've also within the Okanagan area seen a very strong increase with the media and movie sector coming into, in particular, into the Kelowna area. And next slide, please. So again, speaking to the job vacancies, and really it's about our growth. So the growth within each of the areas that we have within the Association of Interior Realtors has continued to expand, which sees us consistently looking for new opportunities for employees. And with that would certainly also come housing needs. And our next slide, please. There we go. So if there's any questions I can answer, I'd be happy to do so.
Thanks, Lindy, for the beautiful look at BC's interior. And I was just up at Shuswap Lake a few weekends ago, so it was wonderful. It's always good to get go up there and enjoy the outdoors there. So, I just wanted to introduce our final, one of our final areas. I'd like to welcome Colleen Ferguson. Colleen, I'd like to hand it over to you.
Sorry about that. Okay. All right. So you're going to do the slides for me. Is that correct? You're going to rotate the slides for me?
Yes,
Yeah,
Fong
we'll
will
take care of
rotate,
it.
just give cues.
I didn't have my practice. Okay, well, great. I'm excited to be here and really happy to introduce the Victoria real estate market to all of those that are watching. I've worked in 6 different real estate markets in my career, and a few of those were in the US market. So, you know, I know that there are some differences, you know, with I don't know how many investors are online, but, you know, in real estate, we're always looking for great investment opportunities. And I think Victoria has a lot to offer anyone who's looking for a great investment opportunity. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about, if you want to go to the next slide, on where Victoria is located and how to get there. Oops, I guess the next one. Yeah, so Victoria's population is about 360,000, and we get nearly 4 million of overnight visitors per year, which is significant. I guess we get a lot of the cruise ships that come in, and you know, it's just a very well-traveled area. A lot of tourists coming from all over the world, actually. And one of the attractions is all the beaches and the outdoor activities. We get, you know, over 21, this stat on here says 2,100 hours of sunshine, but it's give or take, it is one of the sunniest and warmest climates in the country. And due to the sunshine, we're known for a lot of the, you know, the nice flowers. They bloom all year round, actually. So if you'd like to go to the next slide, I'll tell you how to, oops, was there one on? Oh, okay. So yeah, so Victoria is located on the most southern tip of Vancouver Island. So actually a lot of parts of Victoria, when you're here on your cell phone, it will actually roam into the US territory, the San Juan Islands. So we're quite a bit further, you know, we kind of go into almost like US land. It's so the southern tip does. And that makes it one of the warmest climates in Canada. I know my family lives on the mainland, and quite often I'll speak with my mom on the phone and it's raining over there and it's sunnier over here. So that's one of the drawing cards for people moving here. And if you want to go to the next slide, I'll talk about, yeah, so we're actually, it's pretty easy to get here. It's a 1.5 hour ferry ride. Or you can take a harbor air from either Vancouver Harbor or Richmond Harbor. It takes about a 35-minute flight. When you get to, if you do come via ferry and come on your vehicle, or some people come foot passengers and take a bus when they get to the other side, or there's a lot of people who actually come and bring their bicycles and cycle from the ferry down to, you know, throughout, so they can travel throughout the island. And yeah, there's HeliJet as an option as well. So there's quite a few people who actually live in Victoria and commute via Harbour Air or HeliJet or even the ferry for a daily or weekly commute to work in Vancouver. So it's not uncommon for them to use those as their modes of transportation to get to work. So next slide, please. So on this map, we just wanted to outline how close we are to, you know, Victoria, Seattle, Vancouver, all pretty in close proximity as far as travel goes. We have the Victoria Clipper and there's another ferry boat that will go daily from between Seattle and Victoria. And let me see. Yeah, so basically if you come in, you have to get here by ferry boat or by plane is what it's saying. There's no bridges connecting over the waterway. So if you wanted to also commute or come to Victoria, you can drive up island to the northern part. We're in Nanaimo and also take another ferry there. That's a 2-hour ferry ride to the Vancouver side, which takes you on up to Whistler, where the other guest speaker was speaking about. Okay, next slide. Yeah, so Victoria or Vancouver Island area is known for people coming to do whale watching and a lot of hiking and outdoors activities, a lot of biking tours. It's where our capital is located, the Parliament buildings, which is located in one of the slides there. So the downtown area is busy with carriage tours and people getting driven around on those little carriage rickshaw bikes and so forth. So it's a pretty active town for tourists. So it's quite common now that COVID's lifted. It's nice to go downtown and see all the activity again and see the towns come alive. So it's been a nice change. Okay, next slide. Next slide, please. So basically with the top industries here, they're starting to call Victoria Techtoria. So there's I deal with a lot of clients who are in the technology sector, a lot of people coming from all over the US actually. And due to COVID, they've come to realize a lot of people are moving here for the nice weather and they actually work remotely. So technology and IT are one of the top industries. And then of course, tourism. And then the education is also, why a lot of people come here. There's some of the top universities here. And I know my daughter goes to private school and there's boarding houses at her school where students come from actually all over the world. So I've asked a lot of people who move here what the draw is, why they pick Victoria. Because, when I moved here, I thought it would be a quiet, coastal town, but there's people from all over the world that do come here for the education. And then of course the government, our capital buildings are here. So there's a lot of government jobs for the industry, one of the top industries for the area. Okay, next slide, please. So I didn't do a huge deep dive into the numbers. I know we were limited on time, but I just put up here some of the numbers on properties that have sold recently in the previous month compared to this time last year. So there has been a decline in the number of properties sold. And that being said, the development in Victoria, it takes a very long time to develop in Victoria because they're against development, a lot of the old time residents who live here. So that plays a part in how many properties, the activity in the marketplace actually is there's not a lot of availability. And in Langford, however, they're pro-development and they're actually one of the fastest growing cities in Canada. And that has a lot to do with their development permits and proposals happening much quicker. So the numbers are reflective, of course, of the interest rates, but again, the availability is less than what it used to be, or less. It's getting less. It's harder to find homes here. And then for condominium sales, they've been down as well, and single family homes have been down as well. But if you go to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about the rental market. So it's really difficult to find a rental property in Victoria. In fact, some of the students have had to cancel their studies because they could not find housing. So that to rent a 1-bedroom apartment here is about $1,880 a month. And I know people that get about $2,500 a month. And a lot of people I find are doing the vacation rental now. So I just talked to an elderly couple that came back to town. They wanted to move back here and they said they had to pay $4,000 a month just for a 1-bedroom condo downtown just to stay in while they're looking around to see if they wanted to move back. So I find the Victoria market as a whole is a heavily invested market, with people buying now, putting their students or they're buying pre-sales, waiting for their students to start university. So when the pre-sale's done, they'll move their student into that pre-sale property and then have the student get, say, a roommate, for instance, and help pay down the equity. And then that investment is actually helping pay for the student's education at the end of the day. So we find that there's a lot of people, I find, well, probably because I spend a lot of majority of my business is the pre-sale market. We'll get people who are starting to look for homes now when they know they're going to retire here in the next 2 to 3 years due to the weather and the climate. So it's pretty strong demand. The numbers I find on the real estate, when the MLS does the marketing reports, I find it's really difficult to get an accurate gauge on that because the new housing market is not monitored. Like if you were to go and look for a list of how many condos were sold in the past month, it's only going to show you what's sold on the MLS. So my business model is mostly pre-construction. So it's really hard to give accurate numbers. And it's the same thing when doing a market analysis when selling a house is there's no real place to get the true numbers from new construction versus resale. So these numbers that we're speaking are always reflective, just what's recorded on the MLS. So next slide, please. So we were asked to showcase 3 properties. So I started with an entry-level new construction that's ready for completion within the next few months. This is a boutique 6-story concrete build. So it's a higher end entry-level 1-bedroom. And it's in the Esquimalt area along by the West Bay Key Marina. So it's a marina seaside community. And this is a 1-bed, 1-bath, and it's for $625. And they're going to be building an upper luxury building right beside there that will also add to the community. So this is a great investment opportunity or a really great place to live. Okay, the next slide, please. I went and put one of these, this property in here because this is a common scenario for people buying single family homes here is they'll buy a house with an income helper, like a extra suite, 1 or 2 bedroom suite. And it really offsets the cost. And we're still seeing multiple offers in our marketplace on homes that have suites, and they don't necessarily have to be legal suites. I mean, ideally they should be, but they don't monitor that here as much as they do in some markets. And I believe it's the shortage of housing. So this is actually a great opportunity, great price of 1.195. They're usually a house with a 2-bedroom suite in the area, Victoria area. They were going for about 1.45 not too long ago. So the market has adjusted. And that would be a mid-market offering. And then the next slide is, it's a really unique property that I wanted to showcase. And this is a really incredible landmark building in the Inner Harbor. It's what they did was they took this old customs house that was used as a federal building for shipping packages, and they ended up keeping the outer walls of the building and took the inside walls out and recreated the interior. And then the back side of that building where it looks like whiter, they've added on a new section. And so this is just one of those rare, unique offerings that I thought would be kind of fun to showcase. And it is a penthouse with 31 square feet, and it has a 1,500 square foot rooftop deck. And I ended up at the end of this presentation, I've included a video because it's quite fascinating how they went about building this property. So if you'd like to go to the next slide and play the video, I think it's kind of a nice finish to the presentation. All right. And that's a wrap.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for all the wonderful showcasing of our province in BC here. It's great to see that diversity across multiple areas. Before we move on, for our out-of-country guests here today, there are a few items to consider for foreign buyers when considering purchasing residential real estate here. So I should be able to cover this in about 6 minutes. Would I be able to share my screen here?
Yep, go ahead, Daniel.
All right.
Great, it's
perfect.
coming up.
Perfect. Can you see that, hopefully?
Sure can.
Perfect. Again, I'm Daniel John. I'm chair of the Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver. We're a professional association with nearly 15,000 realtors and over 500 real estate brokerages in Metro Vancouver. If you've read any media reporting in Vancouver in recent years, you'll know that rising home prices have fueled an emotional and political public debate about real estate. And the future of our communities have kind of been shaped by this. You'll know that rising home prices have fueled emotional and political public debate. And overall, our prices in our board area have increased over 40% over the last 3 years, which is a pretty rapid rate. As a result of these increases, real estate has become highly political. Many people are urging their elected officials to address housing affordability. Unfortunately, foreign buyers have been targeted as a cause of rising prices, despite a lack of supporting evidence. Most government figures, in fact, show that foreign buyers account for roughly 3% of home sales in our province. And Brendan mentioned earlier that it could be as low as 0.5%. Governments at all levels have taken to this narrative and are taking action to discourage foreign purchase of real estate, as well as purchase of an investment or even vacation properties. And unfortunately, as a result, it's not particularly welcoming in our marketplace at the moment for non-Canadians to purchase real estate in Metro Vancouver. I'm not an accountant, but I'll touch on some of the real estate taxes that we now have in the region to give you some sense of the cost that you potentially face if you made a real estate purchase here. So we have the property transfer tax in BC, and this is what property buyers pay when they register title to their new property, and the tax is outlined as so. We also have a foreign buyers must pay an additional 20% tax known as the foreign buyers tax if they purchase in certain areas in BC, including Greater Victoria, Greater Vancouver, Nanaimo, and Kelowna. Our provincial government implemented this in 2016. There are some exemptions carved out for recent immigrants to BC as long as they're on track to become a permanent resident or citizen to help them avoid paying this tax. We also have a speculation and vacancy tax that's designed to turn empty homes into housing for local residents. And each year, homeowners must declare that they're living in or renting out their property, or they must pay that tax. And if you own a home and it's not your primary residence and you're not renting it out, this annual tax amounts to 0.5% of the assessed value of your property if you're a Canadian citizen, and 2% if you're a foreign homeowner. And our federal government is also working to pass legislation that would implement a 1% tax on the value of dwellings owned by non-residents or non-Canadians that are considered to be vacant or underused. Several exemptions will apply, notably properties that are the primary place of residence for the owner or owner's common law partner or owner's children. This is not yet law, and we're still working to understand the details of this. Our federal government is also considering a 2-year ban on foreign real estate purchases in Canada, and this was an election promise that they made last year. So we don't have any details here yet, but we expect this to be implemented at some point. And this proposed ban is a result of that emotional political conversation around housing affordability that have been occurring in our country. And when political conversations get emotional, poor policy decisions often follow. CREA and real estate boards across the country have been advocating for a more measured, evidence-based policy that targets the true cause of rising home prices, namely issues around supply and housing supply. We'll have to wait to see what happens. So on the home sale side, foreign sellers may have to pay a capital gains tax of 25% on the profit realized on the sale. Canadian citizens are exempt from paying this tax if the home is their primary residence. Some foreign homeowners are and some aren't eligible for this exemption. We also have when a tax withholding, which when a non-resident sells their property in Canada, the Canadian Revenue Agency, kind of like the IRS in the States, generally requires the purchaser to withhold 25% of the sale price until they receive a certificate of compliance from the government to confirm that all of the taxes have been paid. So in summary, that's a very general overview of some of the tax implications that foreign purchasers need to understand when considering Canadian real estate. With any general conversations about tax, there are numerous exemptions and other details that apply. I strongly encourage you to always speak with your local realtor, an accountant, and tax lawyer for more details on making or buying and selling decisions. And I know this isn't the most uplifting topic. We're living in a climate that unfortunately isn't particularly welcoming to foreign home buyers. However, it's important to always be aware of the potential costs before entering into any transaction. So I'd like to thank everyone for listening, and especially thank you, our panel today, for all of your thoughtful insights. They were extremely helpful. I would now like to turn things back over to Sharon, and we have a few minutes here. So let's see if we have any questions for our panelists, and everyone feel free to type them in the chat box, and Sharon and I can try and facilitate the Q&A. Panelists, feel free to jump in and speak to the answers as we go. Sharon, do we see anything in the chat here? I'll stop sharing my screen here. Yeah,
that was great. There's a couple of questions, but I'm gonna limit it a little bit. We still have another presentation, and we'd love to have time for networking at the end, and we can get into those questions. But there were two, so I think it's worthy of just addressing the two. One of them was for Kathy. Kathy, you had noted some rental rates a little earlier on, and I apologize. The question was whether that was a seasonal or long-term rental, and how the rent rate is.
Yeah, the rental rates that I quoted are on behalf of a local rental management company, and those would be monthly rents. So $2,500 a month for a condominium, around $4,000 to $5,000 for a townhouse rental per month, and about $10,000 to $15,000 for a luxury estate home, and they usually come furnished.
Perfect. That's great. One of the other questions, which actually comes up in a lot of our road trips and on webinars I attend about different countries, and it's around short-term rental and the impact of that in the community. And the question was posed by Trisha from Arizona, where they're seeing quite a bit of short-term rental and some policies and bylaws coming down. So maybe we can just very quickly, we'll go to each of the presenters. And Kathy, since you're up, I'll just start with you. I think you did touch on it a little bit in your presentation, but just shortly, if that's being seen as an issue, and any other comment around short-term rental in Whistler.
Sure. For the Whistler community specifically, because we're a resort community, it was designed through municipal governance on covenants on the titles of properties. So many of our Whistler Village properties and on the benchlands and certain areas of Whistler, the strata bylaw, which is like a homeowners association, cannot restrict rentals. So you get homeowners, long-term tenants, and nightly visitors living in the same complex or visiting. So a future buyer is protected against the restriction of nightly rentals. So it makes for our resort to have accommodation available for our guests.
Perfect. That's great. Thank you so much. And Justin, if I could call on you, just a quick comment, if you have one regarding short-term rental and in Vancouver. Go ahead.
Yeah, certainly. Short-term rental, I think we have to first define what short-term rental means. I think it's under
less than 30,
less than 30
typically
days,
less than 30
right?
days. Yeah.
So many strata corporations are discouraging this, and they're stipulating that all rentals need to be at least 30 consecutive days. Some you may see them longer, so you may see them up to 6 months or at least a year. But as long as the owners keep that in mind, they can structure their lease agreements, for as long as they want. But it does need to be at least the 30 consecutive days.
Perfect. Great. Thanks, Justin. And just very quickly, Lindy, if you're there, any comment on the interiors and short-term rental?
Within the Okanagan area and the Kootenay area, we certainly see great demand for short-term and vacation rental, just given the geography. We also do have a number of restrictions that come out, and they're typically driven by strata. One of the things that we've seen happening in many of our areas over the last number of years is smaller development projects coming forward that are allowing for more of that vacation rental opportunity in the area.
Perfect. Thank you. And Colleen, briefly on Victoria, I think you may have touched on it, but just to recap.
There's a huge demand for vacation rental for twofold, for people visiting here, and then also people who sell their homes and they're waiting for their house to be built. They're trying to find a place to live. So yeah, so there's a huge demand, and yes, there are zoning restrictions, but a lot of them are coming out with the 30-day minimums. There are still some that are, older zoning that are per day. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I think even here in Ottawa, we're seeing changes to our own short-term rental. So thank you all again very much for showcasing the different areas in BC to watch. And just to note, I'll put in the chat when our next presenter is up, a couple of links regarding those federal policies that Daniel spoke to. But again, as in any new market, if you're referring clients, great to refer to a local realtor who would have a team of knowledgeable experts they work with from taxation, immigration, title, and all of that to make sure you get the correct information and your client gets the correct information and makes the right purchase at the right time for them. So again, thank you to our realtor panel, and Daniel, thank you for heading off that session for us. Now that we've taken a look at real estate and properties in BC and what makes it great, I'm really excited now to sort of shift focus a little bit to think about the people that make BC home and call BC home. This year in our road trip series, we've been putting some focus on new residents to Canada and our immigration policies. In 2021, over 400,000 new Canadians were welcomed, and a large percentage of those chose to call BC home. And with us today, I'm excited and honored to welcome Heather Bell. She's a consultant and manager of immigration with Bell Alliance out of Vancouver, BC, who's going to share some information on that process with us. So Heather, it's your turn. Welcome.
Great. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so I'm with a law firm in Vancouver, and our main area of practice is actually real estate, yet we have a pretty core immigration team. And so let's just jump into the numbers quickly here for some trends. I'll have next slide, please, and we'll keep on going. Great, okay. So Canada is hitting a record number of landed immigrants per year. And this is, of course, part of the immigration targets for the next few years ahead. We had the record number of over 400,000 who landed as permanent residents. When we say permanent residents, that's similar to a green card holder. So that number, the trend continues to go upwards. It's positive news for Canada. We are in these permanent residents who are coming are help to fill the gaps of the economy. The only challenge that I'm going to highlight is, of course, the massive backlog that's formed during the pandemic. So while these are positive numbers, I'll speak to the delays and backlog we're facing right now. So next slide, please. Here's a breakdown of the permanent residents who landed in 2021 and the destination they chose. Ontario takes a big number, so that's almost 50% of landed permanent residents are destined for Ontario, and then followed by British Columbia. The one thing to note is a permanent resident who is destined for another province. There's a large percentage of those who go out east to land as a permanent resident and actually then come out west to live permanently in BC. So the number of residents or permanent residents in BC is actually higher once that individual potentially has landed and then actually decides where they decide to move to, and BC takes a large portion of that number, followed by Alberta and Quebec as the two other major destinations. Next slide, please. top 10 source countries for permanent residence last year. I just wanted to highlight this. Often India and China are at the top for several years, followed by the Philippines. The US is there. It seems like a small number, but it is one of the top 10 source countries. And then the last 4 countries, they change. Right now we see a high number of Brazilians coming, but say a couple years prior when we had several Syrian refugees coming, Syria was on one of the top 10 source countries. So again, the top 3 often remain the same. India and China for sure are always up there. So that gives you an idea, snapshot of the top 10 countries. We'll continue on to the next slide. Okay, so I wanted to highlight how US nationals are coming to Canada working. So these are temporary workers coming up to Canada. And they usually fall under something called an international mobility program. And the main program is the trade agreement. So Canada, US, Mexico trade agreement. We use this a lot for US nationals coming up to Canada. There's over 60 professions that come under this agreement. And then we see a lot of intracompany transferees coming between branches, subsidiaries, parents, affiliate companies. Traders and investors, another big part under this agreement. And then other programs that US nationals come under, huge international population, international student population, spousal work permits. So families coming, bringing a spouse who obtains work permits. The TV and film industry is huge here in BC, and we see a lot of TV and film workers coming up here with some facilitated programs that support quick work permit options, academic exchanges, and religious and charitable workers. Often all these programs, which are hundreds of programs, get lumped under something called a temporary foreign worker program. But in fact, that's actually a different program in itself. And we don't see a lot of US nationals coming here through that program compared to other countries. It requires a lot more from the employer to complete. So again, our firm sees a lot of CUSMA workers coming, and it would be interchangeable going to and from Canada and the US. We see Canadians going down to the US for this through this program as well. Next slide, please. Again, a snapshot of the comparing US nationals who are here as foreign workers to the rest of the foreign worker population. And I'm just wanting to highlight 2021. You're going to see that that's 16% of foreign nationals that came to Canada as workers were US nationals. And really the reason for that is because of the pandemic. So we saw a huge drop in numbers of foreign nationals from countries like India, Pakistan, other countries that might have experienced complete shutdowns. Whereas the US, the number dropped absolutely, but we still saw US nationals coming here with work permits, as the visa offices in the US that deal with work permits were able to facilitate these easier than other countries where the whole country was shut down. So there you see it. It's US nationals don't make a huge portion of our foreign workers, but it was important in 2021 that they continued to come and made a large portion in comparison to the years before. Next slide, please. US nationals moving to Canada. Most popular PR programs. So family sponsorship. We do a lot of that. Canadian and US nationals, common law, married, and they're sponsoring to bring their spouse from the US. And then the primary focus for Canadian immigration is the economic class, and that is skilled workers or potentially semi-skilled workers as well. And the way we facilitate that is through a program called Express Entry. That's a whole presentation in itself, but it's invitation based. So it's based on a scoring system, and those in Canada with work experience often are favorable on that score system. And then those with foreign experience as well could qualify and potentially obtain the needed points. But that's the majority of those skilled workers coming under Express Entry. And each province has a provincial nominee program, and the territories as well have programs. And this is where the province and the federal government share immigration jurisdiction, and the province can nominate an individual for permanent residency, and that's typically through employer sponsorship. There are some business investment management opportunities, and then some provinces have family and community sponsorship. So again, the province has a real important role to play here, and BC is actually one of the most popular provincial programs. Next slide, please. I thought it'd be important to cover who is a permanent resident, just simply because that gets asked by realtors actually a lot in our office, a few other questions that I'll highlight to later. A permanent resident is someone who holds a document called confirmation of PR document. It's signed by an immigration officer, either at the port of entry or electronically if they're inside Canada. There is a PR card. It looks like a driver's license. It's valid for 5 years. If someone has an expired PR card, they in fact could still be a permanent resident. They only lose their permanent residency officially if the government revokes it or they voluntarily relinquish it. But that PR card, it is not necessarily valid or expired. That individual could still be a permanent resident. Who is not a permanent resident? Pretty clear, those on temporary status, although they like to think that maybe they can qualify for some of the tax exemptions at that time, they may not. And those who are provincial nominee holders. This gets quite confusing for individuals. They're not a permanent resident simply because they have a provincial nomination. So that's again an important distinction to highlight. Next slide, please. The provincial nominee program. Again, BC has a really great program. It nominates high demand foreign workers, certain international students or graduates and entrepreneurs. It is a nomination that is given to an individual, and then they apply for permanent residency for themselves and their family through the federal government. The federal government does its final checks and balances, ensuring that there's no issues with security or medical or being able to be economically established. And then the nomination is valid for 6 months. So they have to apply for PR within that validity period. And once they've submitted that PR, it continues on for processing. That's a big one, 6-month validity. If it expires, the BC government would make very few exceptions to consider extending that expiration date for individuals. Next slide, please. Okay, I know I'm running through this quickly. I'm mindful of time, but considerations with clients applying for PR. There is a lot in the news. Immigration is always a hot topic. The same with the real estate market. There's a huge backlog. It's about 2 million applications in the backlog right now. This is creating a lot of inconsistency, and we have a very hard time predicting processing times right now. But we can tell you that every application is taking longer than we would like and what our clients would like. And the reason why this backlog is formed is because of the pandemic, because office closures, and there's enough inventory there to meet the PR targets for the next 1 to 2 years. So no matter if the government's put measures to address this backlog, they're not keen to add to it. And what they have to process now meets those higher level immigration targets already set for the upcoming years. If you're following Immigration to Canada at all, they did resume the main program called Express Entry. They resumed invitations, but the scoring system, the score is high. It's very high. It's going to be very difficult to get a new invite in the rest of this year. So that's an issue too. Those who are, if you have clients for the realtors in BC, if you have clients who are on foreign status now, or sorry, temporary status, and they're telling you that they're going to apply for PR and they're just waiting for an invitation, they might be waiting several months. They might even be waiting until 2023 to get an invitation. Those other applications that are not Express Entry and they're considered paper applications, which you can now submit online too. Even when they submit their application, we are not getting file numbers, and it could take months to get that file number. Without a file number, you can't check the status of an application. And that takes us to the processing times. Without a file number, without being able to check the status, and then not knowing the processing times, where it varies. We're seeing some really great quick turnarounds on some applications that the client's happy, but then we're seeing the same application, the same profile, take maybe another 6 to 8 months to process. Other applications like spousal sponsorship, provincial nominations without Express Entry, again, some people may be waiting up to 2 years. And the permanent resident card renewal, which would be really key to show the status, to show the status of an individual, the easiest way if they're a permanent resident in Canada. We have some PR card renewals coming back in 2 months, and then another few that are taking 12 months. So for realtors, when you're looking to have verification that that individual is a permanent resident, ideally they're on top of getting these permanent resident cards renewed that are valid for 5 years and demonstrate are the best piece of ID to demonstrate they are in fact a permanent resident. And the last point here, a client may not have a valid PR card, yet they're still a permanent resident, yet hard to prove without that card. I think we'll move to the next slide here, but I believe we're gonna, yeah. So for timing, I'm gonna stop there. The Canadian to US trends, I'll just mention that Canadians are moving to the US under the same CUSMA agreement. That's primarily how they're in the US. The slides that will be shared, I guess, with everyone, you'll see sort of the top states that they're migrating to, of course, being California, Florida, Washington, Arizona, New York, and I think there's one other there, but that there is a Canadian trend to the US, and it's been consistent over the years. But we'll stop there. I am mindful of time, and Sharon, I'll let you take over again.
Oh. Thank you so much, Heather. Sorry about that. And yeah, we can share out that portion of the slides and maybe amend the recording to include it when we do a final cut of the recording. But thank you so much for sharing. Fong, if you just want to advance through the deck, that would be great. In light of time as well, because we do want to have a bit of time for everyone to say a few words and network. I just have one question, Heather. It was in the chat with regards to the Ukrainians and coming to Canada. Are you comfortable to say a few words to that?
Yeah, so there are special measures in place to facilitate Ukrainians coming to Canada. They are, they're the best type of policies we've seen for Ukrainians. It's not the same as you might have seen for Afghan nationals coming to Canada. It is supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be open work permits. Our problem right now is there's a backlog that is even impacting Ukrainians. So we're dealing with Ukraine nationals who've got great job opportunities here, employers jumping on board, trying to get them here as quickly as possible. But we're dealing with visa offices who are just overwhelmed with backlogs, and we're seeing that's impacting Ukrainians as well.
That's great. Thank you for that update and for clarifying what we are doing to help get them here. And it seems like that is a repeated issue. Hospitals, immigration offices, and even passport offices are overwhelmed. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. And I think one closing comment around immigration, the importance of working with someone like Heather or immigration lawyers, your realtor, connect with a local realtor who will have a team that they are comfortable with working and globally minded to make sure you get that insight. Because as Heather has pointed out, timelines can run long, which could then impact whether or not certain taxes are applicable or getting rebates if they did pay certain taxes on purchasing a home. So I'd just like to thank everyone, all of our presenters, once again, for being with us today and sharing all this wonderful information. I also wanted to do a quick shout out to our British Columbia Real Estate Associations who stepped up as well and helped contributing speakers and content. So that's the British Columbia Real Estate Association. Fong, you can just advance to the next slide. The Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver and the Association of the Interior Realtor. So we thank their speakers today, their staff that helped pull together their presentations. I'd like to again thank our co-collaborators today who helped make this event possible. So we'll just do another quick shout out to AREAA Vancouver. And Justin, I know you wanted to share a couple of announcements, so over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Sharon. Just to continue our conversation about AREAA from the beginning of the presentation here. Certainly I can't, showcase everything here, but here are a few selected pictures from AREAA's past events. The one at the top right-hand corner is it's an installation dinner just before the start of the pandemic. We had many in-person events pre-pandemic at many other venues. We'll do them at golf clubs and Sun Place Hotel, for example. And until the pandemic began, we continued to engage, however, just on different platform, event format to Zoom. The other two you see here are from earlier this year, actually. You'll see, let's see here, what role does Feng Shui play in real estate within different cultures? And that features several different international Feng Shui specialists, such as Dr. Lily Chung, You'll see there Dr. Jin Pei and our very own Jerry King. The other program was How to Avoid Being Tax Audited, featuring CPA veteran He Xing, and they both garnered a large audience from as far as Hong Kong, all of the US and Canada. Also, BC realtors who attended these programs received a PDP credit towards their 18 credit requirement for license renewal.
That's great. And
okay, and here is some exciting news. Mark your calendars for Sunday, November 6th, 2022 at the Italian Cultural Center, because RE Vancouver is going to bring you Real Expo 2022. For the first time ever, RE Vancouver is bringing you a public event that will feature many top and local real estate leaders. And one of the many speakers who is already on the bill is Dr. Anthony Chan. He is a managing director, chief economist at JP Morgan Chase in New York City. He appears several times per month on CNBC and is often featured in other media outlets such as Fox Business News, CNN, Reuters, Bloomberg Television. So stay tuned to RE Vancouver as more information is to be rolled out. Next slide, please. Okay, ARIA's membership represents a broad array of real estate, mortgage, and housing related professionals that serve the diverse North American market. Membership includes housing and real estate professionals of all cultural backgrounds. By signing up as a member, BC Realtors will not only receive a free PV credit towards the courses throughout the year, but make sure you go to, for everyone else, so you'll receive a special membership pricing on events such as the one that's coming for November the 6th this year. So make sure you go to aria.org/membership-registration, select the Vancouver chapter on the drop-down menu there. From there, just follow the on-screen instructions and then enjoy the perks. You know, you have perks such as discounts on hotel stays, client gifts, anniversary gifts, etc. From our affiliates. And that wraps up my part of the program. And thank you all for tuning in. Hope to see you guys in person at some point.
that's great. Thanks, Jess. I don't know if you saw me there. I did make a note of the November 6th date in my calendar. So look forward to that event. It sounds exciting. And I just wanted to remind everyone, I hope all of you have registered for tomorrow's, it's a 2-day trade mission. So today we showcased realtors and resale market. Mainly tomorrow, we're focusing on the pre-sale market. I will drop those links in the chat. And if you miss it and do want to, if you miss getting the link, you can always email us at global@crea.ca and we'll make sure you get the right link to join us tomorrow. Same time, that time you're seeing on the slide is 10 a.m. That's Pacific time till noon. And Joyce, we'd love to have you back up to say a few words from Orange County. And I do apologize. I had you listed as chair, Bob. Did not mean any offense there. I just had it quoted wrong. I had worked with Joyce. I know originally when we were looking to bring Orange County realtors to physically into BC a few years back in the pandemic, put an end to that. So Joyce, welcome you back and your team back.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This was such an enlightening and informative time today. And thank you for including us in your great Canadian road trip. So thank you to CREA, Canadian Real Estate Association, and Sharon. And tomorrow, we really look forward to Tina Mack with ARIA Vancouver being our moderator for the pre-sale event. So we hope that everyone will have an opportunity to join us tomorrow, same time. And a special shout out to all of our Orange County Realtors who did join in and all of our friends. Thank you very, very much for sharing with us today.
Great. Thanks, Joyce. And thanks. And I do apologize. Bob is the chair of the Global Alliance this year. And Bob, it was great to meet you here today. And Lisa, great to have you here with us as well. And we'll see you both tomorrow. Just a couple other parting words. We can move to the next slide. We mentioned a lot about real estate here in Canada, realtor.ca. You can view over 240,000 active listings across Canada by visiting Canada's #1 real estate platform, or realtor.ca. Very unique. It's owned by CREA and operated on behalf of all realtors across Canada. So all listings are are up on that public portal site. You won't find any advertising on there. It's wholly owned by CREA and supported in support of all realtors. So check it out. You can also search for one of our amazing realtors there as well. I'd also like to mention, as manager of global strategy and relations at the Canadian Real Estate Association, I oversee our global affiliates. That's an opportunity for non-Canadian realtors and real estate professionals to become an affiliate of the Canadian Real Estate. You can find out more at www.creaglobal.ca. I'll put in the chat. We have a promo code for 30% off, your first year subscription. For those who aren't a global affiliate, I encourage you to join, and then you'll get your invite to join us at the Canadian reception at the NAR conference this November in Orlando, which we're excited to be a part of. So we hope that you've learned a little bit more about the province of BC today. We hope you'll reach out and grow your Canadian Realtor network with us. We'll be on the road again in November, on November 30th for the Great Canadian Road Trip, where we'll be showcasing Ontario. We'd like to invite you to stay on. We have a couple of minutes and we can go into some networking. So we'll stop for the recording at this point.